Divorces in Kentucky just collapsed by 25%. Not because couples suddenly found love again, but because the cash out game is over. For decades, divorce was treated like a jackpot. Mom walks away with the kids. Mom walks away with the check. And dad? He's reduced to a weekend visitor and a paycheck.
One state just nuked its divorce rates by doing one rare thing that the rest of America would never dare.
And there is a real danger that the divorce rate is going down because it's harder for women to leave.
If I have my child half the time, why am I paying full support? Like I'm not even around. I'm feeding them, clothing them, taking them to school, wiping their tears, just like she is. But somehow only I have to pay up. This system don't reward fatherhood. It punishes it.
Kentucky flipped the script. They became the first state in America to pass a law making 50-50 custody the default. And the moment that happened, something incredible and honestly terrifying for some people was exposed. When women realized they could no longer cash out through the courts, divorce filing dropped overnight. A full quarter fewer divorces in one state compared to just 18% nationwide. Men call it fairness. Women's group, they call it dangerous. And that clash right there between fairness and fear is why this story is exploding.
There are reports coming out of Kentucky that the divorce rate has completely plummeted. 25%. It's gone down 25%. Like, that's significant. You know, when the divorce rate nationally rests, I don't know, I think a little bit above 50%, to have it drop 25% in one state means to pay attention. It's a reason to pay attention.
And here's the kicker. The money numbers prove it. Before this law, a dad making $4,000 a month would be forced to hand over nearly $10,000 a year in child support. After the new law, that drops to maybe $200 a month, sometimes zero. We're talking about a $7,500 swing in every year. Plus, something even bigger, half of his child's life back. I'll break down that math in just a moment. But first, let's talk about why this single change sent shockwaves through the divorce industry. Because let's be real, if divorce filing dropped by 25% the second the financial jackpot disappeared, what does that tell you? For years, men have been told, no, it's not about the money. Women just aren't happy. But the data speaks louder than the excuses. As soon as the reward for leaving was gone, so was the rush to file divorce. And that's why this law is stirring up a storm. Fathers say it's justice. Critics say it's a trap. Women's group are arguing that it locks moms in marriages and puts kids at risk. But let's look at the bigger picture. Florida, Arkansas, West Virginia, Missouri, they've already filed Kentucky's lead. And right now, over 20 more states are considering it. This isn't just about Kentucky. This is the beginning of the end for the divorce cash-out system. The critics say this law puts women and children in danger. But when you actually look at the facts, and when you see how much the system was really built on men's wallet, you'll understand why this law isn't just saving families. It's exposing the truth about modern divorce.
I don't think it's necessary. We split her 50-50. She's at my house just as much. She's with me just as much, if not more.
Your Honor, I would say that's probably an argument for her to pay me. If we're splitting 50-50, I shouldn't have to pay all of it.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. So you kind of like told on yourself. So you ready to move forward with the numbers?
Sure.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get ready with the numbers. So it looks like you make, like I said, $100,000 a year. Do you work overtime, or is that regularly what you make?
No, I work overtime. But
okay. And does that include overtime?
Yes, ma'am. It's a salaried position, so it's just straight up.
All right. Let's put some real numbers on this, because the math is what makes it undeniable. Before Kentucky passed the 50-50, the typical story looked like this. Dad makes about $4,000 net income. Mom gets the kids 80% of the time. Dad gets every other weekend and maybe one dinner during the week. Under those guidelines, child support lands around 20% of his income. That's about $800 a month, nearly $10,000 a year. Gone. And remember, that's on top of insurance, school costs, and extras he still has to cover. Now, after 2018 with 50-50 custody as a default, same dad, same income, but now he has his kids half the time, which means child support gets offset. Instead of $800 a month, he might pay maybe $200 to $300 a month. In some cases, if mom makes close to the same amount, he pays nothing, zero. That's not just $7,500 a year staying in his pocket. That's also half of his child's life back. He's not just a paycheck anymore. He's a parent again. And this is where things get heated. Because if you think men celebrated, you're right. But women's groups, they lost their minds. They say this law traps women in bad marriages and puts kids in danger. But when you actually look at what people on the ground are saying, the story looks very different. Top male comment. If divorces drop by 20%, the second child support dries up. That proves it was never about happiness. It was about the money. Another father says, for once, courts don't see me as just a wallet. This is the first time in decades I feel like an equal parent. A mom's comment. I'm in a Kentucky mom group, and women are literally deciding whether to leave their husbands based off of this law. It's hard for them now. Someone responds to, hard for them? You mean hard because they can't cash out anymore. This isn't trapping women. It's finally equality. This is what makes this law explosive. For men, it's not just about saving money. It's about finally being seen as more than just disposable. For critics, it's the end of a system they quietly benefited from for decades. And that clash, fairness versus fear, equality versus entitlement, is exactly why this debate is spreading beyond Kentucky. Because here's the part no one wants to admit. If one state can cut divorce by 25% just by removing the financial jackpot, what happens when the entire country follows? Now, not everyone cheered when this law passed. Women's group came out swinging. Their biggest claim? That equal custody traps women in abusive marriages. They argue that judges sometimes overlook abuse unless the father directly harms the child. And yes, there's horror stories floating around. One mother said her husband nearly killed her. And just weeks later, a judge still granted him 50-50 custody. That story spread like wildfire. So, critics are painting this law as dangerous, not just unfair, but unsafe. And on the surface, it sounds scary. But when you dig deeper, you realize something else is going on here, exposing the gray areas. Here's the truth. A lot of what gets labeled domestic violence in family court falls into what lawyers call the gray area. Things like yelling during an argument, breaking a dish, punching a wall, even blocking a doorway. In California, smashing a glass in the middle of a fight can be treated as DV. Now, I'm not saying those behaviors are good, but should a dad lose custody of his child because he raised his voice once or broke a phone in an argument? That's exactly what used to happen. Before Kentucky's law, those gray areas claimed could tilt custody completely in mom's favor. Equal custody stopped that. Judges now start at 50-50, meaning those small ambiguous incidents don't automatically strip a father away from his children.
So most of y'all know by now that I had a restraining order put on me after 4 years. That's 4 years after the first custody battle. The whole reason why I got a restraining order thrown on me was because I did videos like this. I spoke up explaining why men are giving up on their children, why, just pretty much why, because no one cares why. But if I keep speaking, enough people will start listening to where I can try and get through to some people's heads.
And here's what's wild. The same people who call this law dangerous are the ones who spent years shouting about equality. But the second equality means women don't get a financial advantage. Suddenly, it's oppression. I'll show you what real equality looks like in a minute and why kids actually do better under shared parenting. But first, let's check the pulse of what people are really saying. Fathers comment, this law saved my relationship with my kids. Before, I was a visitor. Now I'm a dad again. Mom, this is a death of a family system. Women and children will suffer. Male response, death of a system? No. It's the death of your free ride. This is the core battle right now. Fathers see this law as justice, finally leveling up the court system that treated them like second-class parents. Critics see it as patriarchy, a rollback of leverage in marriage. And the reason the debate is so emotional is simple. When you take away the financial reward for divorce, you expose what divorce was really built on. Let's zoom out for a second, because while the critics are shouting about danger, the research paints a completely different picture. Study after study show that kids do better with shared parenting. They perform better in school. They have fewer behavior problems. And they grow up with healthier views of relationships because they didn't lose a parent in the process. In fact, one of the most powerful comments I saw was from a father who said, "For the first time, my kids don't feel like they're visiting anymore. They feel like they actually live with me." That's not just a financial win for men. That's a generational win for children. And here's the part that's going to flip the divorce industry upside down. This isn't stopping with Kentucky. This law is spreading fast. And when it goes nationwide, the system built on cashing men out may not survive. As of this year, 20 more states are considering similar bills. Judges and lawmakers are calling it the new standard of equality. One Kentucky judge put it perfectly. You can't write laws for all families based off the worst case scenarios. And men knows what this means. If one state drops divorce by 20%, shook the system? Imagine what happens when dozens of states follow. We're talking about billions of lawyer fees gone, child support revenues slashed, and an entire divorce industry scrambling to survive. One father's comment, "This isn't just equality, this is finally justice. Every state needs this law." Critics comment, "This is the death of the divorce system. Women will be trapped." Male response, "No, women aren't trapped. They're just not incentivized to blow families up anymore." So, here's a truth men needs to hear. This isn't just about child support, it's about leverage. For decades, the divorce system gave one side all the power. The second that power was stripped away, divorce collapsed. And that's why this isn't just a local issue. It's the biggest cultural shift in family law in decades. Which raises the real question. What happens when the cash-out system collapses nationwide? Because make no mistake, it's coming.
I believe that 50-50 is best, and I believe that there should be a presumption of 50-50 if there is no abuse history, there's no violent criminal history or other criminal history that would inhibit the person to parent the child, that there is no mental health issue that is going untreated that would impact the child negatively, that there's no drug and alcohol issue that's not being treated that would impact the child negatively, that there is no major distance geographically between the parents that would make 50-50 unrealistic, and that there hasn't been a significant amount of time passed since one parent has had contact with the child, like probably a year or more. I think if none of those are present in the case, then I think there should be a presumption of 50-50. I think it's what's best for the child.
So let's connect the dots. One state passed a law making 50-50 custody the default. Divorce rates dropped 25%. Lawyers panicked. Women's groups protested. Fathers finally felt equal. Kids got both parents back. And the divorce industry, it lost its golden goose. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. For decades, divorce wasn't just about broken marriages. It was a business model, a system that rewarded one side with custody, cash, and control, while the other side got drained. The second that system got disrupted, divorces collapsed. And that should make everyone stop and think, how much of modern divorce was really about love? And how much was about leverage? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all divorces are motivated by child support, money, or anything as such. Some people might be really trapped in a marriage from which the only way out would be divorce. But the bigger picture is that this isn't stopping with Kentucky, which means this isn't just a fluke. This is the future. And the people who built careers off of divorce industries, they know it. So here's the real question. If taking away the financial jackpot cut divorce by 25% in one state, what happens when the whole country follows? Because make no mistake, it's coming. And when it does, the divorce industry won't just shrink, it'll collapse. For the first time in decades, fathers won't be disposable, kids won't lose a parent, and women won't be able to cash out of marriage like it's a business deal. That's not oppression. That's equality. That's accountability. So tell me, is this the beginning of saving family or the end of an entire system built on men's backs? Drop your thoughts below because this conversation isn't ending anytime soon. And to better understand this divorce system, check out my latest video. It's been your girl Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.